You've had a job interview and now it's time to write a thank you note. This tradition seems old fashioned, but taking the time to send a thank you note or thank you email can set you apart from the other candidates. Keep watching to learn everything you need to know about writing a thank you email. This video is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you're looking for a job, ZipRecruiter can help. ZipRecruiter makes it easy to apply for jobs with a single click. You can also upload your resume to their resume database so that your resume is searchable for thousands of recruiters and employers who use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is also free for job seekers. Click the link in the description below to get started with ZipRecruiter today. Do you need to send a thank you after an interview? You certainly don't have to send a thank you after an interview. They aren't a mandatory part of the job hunt, but they can be a good idea. Here's why. Some hiring managers expect thank you notes. Not all do, but some absolutely expect them and will think poorly of you if you don't send one. It only takes a few seconds to write one, so why risk offending the hiring manager? Next, it puts you back on the hiring manager's mind. Often, you're competing against multiple people for the job. The hiring manager or team may have interviewed three, four, five other people for the job. Some of these people may have similar experiences to you, making everyone blur together. Sending a thank you note brings your name back to the front of the hiring manager's mind. That's a good thing. Next, it's a chance to throw in something you forgot to mention. Have you ever walked out of an interview and said, "Oh no, I forgot to tell them about the time I won the Employee of the Month"? It can be really frustrating, so this is a chance to add that in. And finally, you can also ask a relevant question. At the end of most interviews, the interviewer will ask if you have any questions. Sometimes you don't have questions or you forget to ask something. You can always ask a question during this thank you as well. You don't have to send a physical card in the mail, and email is a very acceptable way to send a thank you after an interview. Now let's dive in how to write a thank you email. Don't worry too much about it, just write it, but here are a few things to include. First, include a salutation. Unless the person has doctor or professor in their title, address it to the first and last name. So, Dear Jane Doe. Don't use Dear Jane or Dear Mrs. Doe. The only exception to the latter is if they introduce themselves as Miss Doe or Mr. Rowe. Also, be sure to include an email closing. Use your first name as found on your resume. If your legal name is Jonathan Jones, but your resume says John, sign off as John Jones. You want them to match your resume so they know who they're getting this email from. Always use a polite closing like sincerely or something that fits your personality. Only use titles if you have one, like doctor or professor. Make sure you reference the job. When you send your thank you email, include the job that you applied for and interviewed for in the subject line or in the body of the email. They may be interviewing for multiple positions, so this helps them remember you and the position you applied for. Make sure you include an actual thank you. You don't have to be gushing, but do say thanks in one way or another in your email. Express your continued interest in the position. Remember, you're interviewing the company just as they are interviewing you, so let them know you want to move forward. And finally, ask a question. If you have one, that is, do not try to force one. But if there was something you forgot to ask during the interview, include it in this email. Here is one sample email that you could send after an interview. If you'd like to see additional thank you email samples, click the link in the description below. When should you send your thank you email? The best time to send a thank you note is within 24 hours of interviewing, but it's okay to send one later if you don't get to it right away. The important thing is that it gets there before the hiring manager decides who to hire. Writing a thank you note doesn't have to be stressful. Take a few minutes after every interview to send a nice note. Miss Manners would be proud and it might help you get the job. If you're still looking for a job, we recommend ZipRecruiter. Click the link in the description below to get started today.